Have you been to the supermarket lately and noticed a bit of a price jump in the fruit and veggie section? There are fears this will continue. Recent border closures across the country are creating significant issues with supply chains. And it's not just harvesting of the nation's produce being impacted. As we discussed here last night, cattle producers are also being hampered from reaching their herds and dealing with calf season, which is coming up. Let's bring in Federal Minister for Agriculture, Drought and Emergency Management, David Littleproud, and see what's happening on this front. He joins me now from Clifton. Minister, thanks for your time. I saw today that the Prime Minister was dealing with New South Wales on this morning. You're ramping up pressure on state premiers to resolve the issues, are you?
Well, ultimately, they're the ones that will be able to fix this. They're the ones that have the sovereign right to impose border restrictions and what they look like at a local level. The Prime Minister, through his leadership, has said that he'll escalate this through the National Cabinet process and not necessarily wait till next Friday, but in an out of session, try to get this sorted beforehand to make sure that the practical application of what the restrictions states have imposed, and we respect them, that's their sovereign right, but the practical application at a local level, particularly in regional and remote areas where there hasn't been the cases, can be looked at in isolation and done safely so that supply chains can be kept and that animal welfare can be maintained, and above all, human well-being can also be maintained. Because you understand that a lot of these border residents, a lot of their health facilities are on the other side of the border, and a lot of those are critical. So it's important that we just use some common sense here. We work with the states. We're not blaming them. We respect the chief medical officers in each of those states making their edicts, but we're just saying, can it be retrofitted to look in a pragmatic and practical way to look after regional and rural Australia in a different way than what you are to metropolitan areas?
Yes, that's a good term. It does need to be retrofitted. Now, Victorian farmers want agriculture permits to allow them passage to cross borders to work and get food on our tables, as they say. I spoke with Victorian Farmers Federation President David Littleproud last night. Have a listen to this.
It's got to be noted, we don't farm for a state, we don't farm for an area, we farm for all of Australia. We need to be able to move around, get our job done and get home without having to cause any more hassle, any more work other than getting our critical needs, critical jobs done.
David Littleproud, an agriculture permit sounds like the perfect fit here.
Yeah, look, he's so right. Our agricultural production systems are nationally integrated and we rely on one another. And that means that you and the end consumer also rely on that, and to make sure that pragmatic solutions are achieved. And, you know, state borders in many ways have got in the road of this. In many respects, are we better to have a regional solution rather than arbitrary lines on a map that have formed states? Can our leaders come together, our state leaders come together and pragmatically look at this in terms of looking at us as regional Australians, in making sure that our freedom of movement that has been, in most cases, very clear of COVID-19, still be able to have the freedom of movement and protection, but then be able to undertake what we need for this country, as well as maintain the high animal welfare standards that we've got. Because I can tell you, our farmers, this is one of the most critical things that they get emotional about, is when they have livestock on properties in another state and they can't get there to go and make sure that they're fed or watered, or the fences are still up and they're not roaming the roads. That could cause public concern and hurt. They're actually, that's the most distress that farmers do get, is about their progeny of their livestock, and hoping that they're okay when they can't be there to tend to them. And that's what makes Australian farmers the best in the world, because of that care and the passion they have about what they produce. And we're just saying that this is an opportunity to understand. We respect the challenges we face under these health conditions, but can we look at this as a regional focus, as a nation regionally, in making sure that we can continue to allow our farmers to calmly and methodically do what they've done since COVID started, which is produce the best food and fibre in the world and make sure it's on your shelf and your plate every night.
See, between the two of us, we've just come up with about 5 different reasons why we should have what you're suggesting here, which I think is an inspired idea, almost this permanent border pass for those maybe within 10 k's of each and every border in Australia.
Well, it just takes leadership, and that's why the PM said, well, let's escalate this at National Cabinet, where we have the decision makers on this, the state premiers, the opportunity, give them the opportunity to lean in and to look at what are the opportunities that we can face up to here, because we don't know how long COVID's going to be around. Let's be honest, we've got to actually not just look at the issues as we face them now, but plan for what could be. With respect to COVID. And these are the sort of things that if you sit down and talk to some of these regional Australians, their civic leaders and the agricultural industry leaders, they themselves have thought through this because they're experiencing it every day. They're the ones that are practically experiencing the restrictions that have been arbitrarily imposed by health officials in the capital city, and we respect that because they do have the scientific data. But when you look at it and impose that in a regional perspective, where we haven't had the cases and where you can actually close down and make corridors and shut particular other parts of the country off to the regional areas, then those are the options that need to be explored. I'm not necessarily saying it's right, but there are smarter people than me that can sit down and try and work this through to make sure that we not only protect Australians, but keep Australia moving while we're doing it.
I like it, and it falls into this category of things that pose and come to us like opportunities from disaster, which, of course, is what we're facing at the moment. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your weekend.
You too, mate. Great to be with you.